Woo. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Awesome. Hi, Becky. Sandra, it's so good to see you. Yeah. Hey, Kelly. Yeah, feel free to go ahead and turn your video on. We'll go over the disclaimers and stuff here in just a minute, but hi. Oh my goodness. Mindy, good to see you. All right. Awesome. So it's just me and you guys today. I'm going to be moderating and doing all the chat stuff. So bear with me as we talk about cannabis for chronic pain. I'm just going to take a really quick poll before we dive in, but who read it, who started reading it, who got some pages in? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, some. Yeah. Yeah. Same. Same. Didn't get it all the way through again. But I'm excited to talk with you about this because it's just it's an important topic, especially for those of us who's working in cannabis and health currently, cannabis coaching, cannabis education, CBD companies. Yeah, a lot of you are. Awesome. Cool. All righty. All right, so everybody, let's pop in the chat. Let's do our check-in. Where are you at? Where are you from? Where are you living at? And where are you at on your cannabis journey? Are you just starting out, intermediate? Have you gone pro? Seems like a lot of you, especially those with your videos on, have gone pro already, which is awesome. Going pro is good. All right, awesome. Maureen is in Denver, just starting a practice. You have a cert. Awesome. Becky's in Okie, train at CCI. That's right. Megan's a lifer. I love it. Awesome. Cool. And John is at University of Maine. Cool. John, welcome. Awesome. Awesome. Trisha is an 11-year patient on Oahu. Cool. Sarasota, all over the place. Everybody's all over the place. This is awesome. Great. So good to see all you. Oh, Kelly's just starting out. Awesome. Welcome, Kelly. So glad to see you all here. And while you guys are popping those still into the chat, I'm going to let you know that there's some rules here. I get to be the principal sometimes at CCI. For those of you who are in it know that I have to often put on my, these are the rules, guys. And I don't know how that became my role because it feels very counter to my natural being, but it is what it is. It's my lot in life. So you do have to be over 21 to be in this room, please. And if you're not, we will see you on your birthday. This call, the recording of it might be shared. So if you don't want your face seen on the internet, you can always turn your video off. Typically the way that we share these, the only time that your face will be seen is if you decide to engage and talk. So you can also feel free to mute yourself before you share. So those are your options. Again, you're welcome to imbibe on this call. Just know that it might be seen by other human beings. You can also change your name to maintain more anonymity if you'd like to do that as well in Zoom. Don't ask me how to do that. I just know it's possible. So go ahead and Google that and make it a reality for yourself. Zoom etiquette. If you're moving around, I know we've been doing this for a long time, but it feels like a good reminder every single time we meet. If you're moving around, if you're eating, if you decide to change locations, just go ahead and turn your video off and make sure to leave your sound off unless unless I call on you to share. Okay, all agree to the rules? Awesome. This book club is brought to you by the Cannabis Coaching Institute, and we are just opening for enrollment for our next cohort here today. So we have a really awesome free gift that's at the end of this call. So I hope you stay tuned for that. I'm very, very excited. We haven't done it in years, so I'm really, really stoked to share it with you. I think it'll be really helpful to those of you, especially if you're just starting out on your career with cannabis, or for those of you who are ready to take your business to the next level and get some traction with some of that. Excited? Yay. Okay. My old students are like, okay, cool. I'm already crushing. Awesome. Okay. So Nikki Wells is not here. That's an old note. Sorry, guys. All right. So I'd love to hear from a few of you, just your initial takeaways from the book. Did you love it? Did you not like it so much? Were there parts that you found confusing? How'd you feel about it? Go ahead and raise your hand and I will unmute you, or you can go ahead and pop in the chat as well. Nobody wants to share? Come on, everybody. It's book club. All right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Trisha, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, go for it.
Okay. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
So I was really taken that he included affirmations from Louise Hay. That has been the mainstay of my life for over 30 years now. I read the book in 1989, got sober in 90 because of that book. So when that was incorporated, I just found it to be very much in line with my thinking of science of mind, my spiritual background. It just fit right in. So I feel as though I am living alive fully, as he talked about.
Yes.
That's how that was my response.
I love it. Thank you so much, Trisha. Yeah. Who else, like, you picked up this book and you thought you were going to be reading about a doctor, dealing with chronic pain? You're like, there's a lot he's going at. He's approaching this in a different way. Was anybody surprised by how he started to approach chronic pain in general? Yeah, a lot of you. Who else wants to share about some insights, some of the first impressions that you got from that book, things that were surprising to you? Sandra, yeah.
Unmute myself. Hi there. I really love the part about the issues with the tissues, and how emotional aspects tend to show through physical pain, and how he is very open about talking about that connection and things that are more spiritual, and that are usually things that you would not discuss with your doctor, or if you try to, they would be like, yeah, whatever, let's focus on your symptoms. So having that broad spectrum of approaching issues with your body was really, it struck a chord with me. And also the plethora of diseases, and it's just cannabis is for everything. So it was very educational in that aspect. Just things that have to do with hormones, and all reproductive systems in women, and everything that needs to be in balance for you to function properly. It's a world in there. So he is very thorough also in his documentation of his patients, and I really like that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, who else was like, I want Dr. Rob to be my doctor? Great doctor. Yeah, like Sandra said, is like he's really approaching all of these different levels of health, right? And I think John mentioned it, that he loved that he was focused on cannabis and health, but also the importance of diet and exercise, and also these emotional aspects, right? Like Sandra mentioned, that the idea of like the issues in the tissues. And it's really important for those of you who work with people with chronic pain, especially with cannabis, they come to you because they're interested in the cannabis aspect of things. But I feel like it's our duty as people who help others to be able to support them on their journey fully, right, back to health. And to me, cannabis is an incredible tool, and it's a great modality, this education aspect of it. But that's one of the things I loved about Dr. Rob and the way he approached this, was that it wasn't solely focused on that. Because you can write an entire book, right, about cannabis and chronic pain and just focus on the plant and how it works in the physical body. But I really did love how he brought in all of these other perspectives, like Trisha said, this perspective of affirmation, and this woman really identifying. I think the first story that he told about it was the one with rheumatoid arthritis and the self-criticism aspect. And when she shifted out of that and started, telling herself different stories, she changed. Her behaviors changed, the way that she showed up changed energetically as well. So I think it's really beautiful. This idea of the fully alive philosophy is just really incredible to give to people with chronic pain who are dealing with that condition. Is anyone here dealing with chronic pain? Did I ask that already? I meant to. Okay, yeah. Okay, so you're on a chronic pain journey, right? So how many of you, after reading this, changed something? Did it affect you at all? Did you start approaching life differently after reading this book or during reading this book? Anyone? Okay, now I have a question. Yeah. So why not? Can someone share with me, like, you read, some of this book, but perhaps all of it? Can someone share with me? Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Hang on, I'm gonna try to unmute you. I think you have to be a participant.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks, Kelly.
Okay. I just found out about your group, and so I just got the email and saw the book and was exploring it, but I haven't purchased it yet. But my personal goal is to get out of the chronic pain program and transition from using I've already titrated down, but I've been at certain doses of opiates for a long time. Anyway, I'm learning to do that, and I'm curious to know if he talks about that in the book.
Yeah, he does talk a lot about that. He talks a lot about a lot of things. And so that's one of the insights that I got when I was reading. And I was curious to see how many of you kind of started changing your behaviors, because there was a lot of information and there were a lot of rules and regulations and things. And so I was wondering how easy it was for you to start incorporating those. And maybe you can share with Kelly how easeful you thought those things were, or maybe were not. Did anybody find it difficult to incorporate some of the things that you learned in this book into your own life? Trisha? Yeah, would you share, please? Yeah, and Megan, I'd love to hear from you after that.
So I'm, like I said, 30 plus years sober now, but a lifelong smoker. And I didn't quit smoking cigarettes until the day I quit working was the last day I smoked cigarette. And that was about 3.5 years ago. So I haven't smoked a cigarette, but I've smoked a joint every day. And so what I found interesting is that he brought up the Wolf Mods vaporizer. So I actually got on the phone and called his number, and he called me back. And he was going to send me a vaporizer. He was a very nice man to speak to. But before he called me back, I had ordered one from West Coast Vape. Well, after he called me and I said, oh, thank you very much for calling me. I was on my spinner. I was all out of breath, and he's talking to me, and it's like, I'm like, but it was so great that he called me back, and, he told me how his father had been treating lung patients, a cardiologist. And so what I found that I wanted to change was going about how I inhale, because I have a volcano vaporizer, but the bag is like huge, and that's like a party bag. I'm not a party person, for one, for everybody. So I guess for me, it was wanting to do the vaporizer, but finding that when I ordered it, it didn't come to me, and he offered to send one, and I haven't got back to him, but he did reach out to me, and I appreciated that. So that's been the difficulty, is figuring out the right vaporizer. Probably I need to call him again and just touch base again.
Figuring out the right vaporizer is really challenging. And so is leaving smoking. How many of you still continue to smoke cannabis? Is that your chosen? Some of you? Right. Okay. Occasionally, maybe daily, right? And so how did that recommendation land for those of you who are daily or regular smokers of cannabis, when he was talking about moving away from that? Was that something that you were like, okay, okay, Dad, like, I guess I'll stop doing that? Or were you like, okay, this is something that I'm ready to do now? How many of you were like, yay, I'm ready to quit? Or how many were like, yeah, kind of 50-50? Well, I would say 70-30. Okay, great. Megan, I would love to hear you share. Megan Runk. I don't know if we have more than one Megan. Okay.
For that question, the saving it for Sunday, or, I just, to each his own with that. As a teacher, how individual we are with our absorption, and the way, whether we're having a tincture or we're having a joint or vaping, vaping's a little less, joint's more immediate. The tinctures take a little longer, but they are really good, and you can play with that. But how we're all so different, I thought the main thing is to switch it up and not have the same thing 3 days in a row. And if you now, with places you can go get it, you can have different strains, so you can have it longer through the week and not save it like that, or have it in different ways. There's so many different ways to have it, just not the same way, same amount every day. And I think you'll be fine. The other thing was with getting off of painkillers and things. I have a relative that I've been making medicine for years, and I think she's replaced several, I don't know all the names of everything she was on, which she probably didn't need half of them. She just kept getting prescribed, kept taking them, trying to kill the pain. And one tincture, she was already realizing, I don't need this, I don't need that, a month or so into it, and got off a bunch of them. And it just takes time, but it's finding the right dose for you and finding the right way that you want to take it in. Also, when he was, what was that other question? Anatomy of Spirit by Carolyn Miss is a really good book. And I was reading that at the time that I was listening to this book. I did the audio, which it was a lot of hours, but it was a lot of reading. And the stats kind of took forever, and the dosages but anyway, he mentioned that book, and I just knew I liked this guy because her whole concept, I really like her. I forget my other thing I was going to say for you for beginning the journey. The plant, how he went into it with his experience, and then all that other stuff happened to him, and he wrote about it that way because the plant guides you to these things. Like, I've grown up with the plant, and it in my life has taken me places I didn't know I needed to go. So I feel like with chronic pain, or with just however you're using it, it makes you lay down and stretch. Like, you're feeling good. You're like, oh, I'm going to do some stretches. And I always intend for it to be yoga or structured. But a lot of times it's just you're listening to your body and moving how you need to move to stretch something that hurts on you, and taking care of yourself. And I think it also, smoking it brings you to eating well. It brings you to going outside. It brings you to all the things that you need to do in life and in recovery. So I liked how it built up, but I also thought, wow, he was learning that the plant was showing him all this stuff, and he was a doctor, so he could delve into it at every level and work with people, and that was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, what's the Bob Marley quote? The plant reveals you to yourself, right? I mean, that one is so very, very true. I love that. It's so interesting that you say that, because that's come up over and over again for some reason these past few weeks, that idea that, it tunes you in this place. You're like, oh, that thing's creaky. Oh, that feels really good. And it definitely can. I want to circle back around to something you mentioned earlier about the ways that we can kind of start approaching cannabis. And for those of you who are working with clients, ways that you can kind of approach working with cannabis with your chronic pain patients. That I think it was really interesting in this book, his approach, talking about how higher levels of THC for people experiencing acute chronic pain flare-ups will not feel as psychoactive, which is something that I had experienced but never had context for. And so I was really grateful that he brought that around, because a lot of times, especially when you're working with clients, you're talking about microdosing and you're talking about long-term strategies for healing. But this is just kind of one of those important notes, that cannabis is different depending on what you're working with and what your client is working with. And I thought that one was really insightful. So that's one of the big ahas that I took away from this book, is that now we have this kind of context, this language for using higher THC in these kind of more therapeutic settings. And I thought that was really incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that, Megan. One thing I did find, and I'm curious to see how you feel about this, is I felt that his guidance around strain selection and some of his product things were a little bit outdated. Did some of you who have been studying cannabis recently feel, yeah, oh my, the indica sativa hybrid, thing kind of over and over again. And he says it in the beginning really quickly. He's like, once you know more about terpenes, I'm sure. And I'm like, oh, that's the problem with writing books about cannabis. It's just, so that is one thing that I wanted to say for those of you who are new to this and who have read this book, that there are a lot, well, I should say that we're all kind of approaching cannabis selection and genetics in a different way than the kind of like simplified sativa indica hybrid conversation that he had at length in this book. That kind of, I was also listening to it, Megan. I'm like, oh no, if I have to hear it, oh no, I'm like glitching out. We're all gonna have to talk about this. so it's important that, you know, we keep in mind that there are new discoveries all the time, and that, you know, when we find something out and we learn something, especially if it's been written a couple of years ago, that we just stay open to new information as well. Was anybody else thrown off by that at all? Like, what am I to believe? Or were you like, oh, this must just be outdated? And yeah. Is it Anna or Anna? Did I mispronounce it? Anna, Anna. I can't hear you. Awesome. Okay, so let's see, what else? What questions did, oh, sorry about that. What questions did this bring up? I'm curious. Are there any of you who read some of the book and are more curious about something or confused about something? Yeah, go ahead, Megan. And Anna. I'll learn as soon as you, I'll let you hang on, Megan. I'll let Anna go so I can learn how to pronounce her name. Alrighty. Unmute.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Can you hear me? Hi, Anna, it's fine.
Anna, awesome, great.
Hi, Karen. So yeah, when I was reading about the concentrates, he mentioned that for the first time, especially when it came to shatter and wax, that it's possible to overdose on cannabis. So that really threw me off.
I didn't read that bit. I know he did talk a bit about bad experiences. Did anybody else? I don't remember him talking about lethal overdose, but I do know, and interestingly enough, that I Googled something and Dr. Rao came up. He's like a real advocate for not legalizing concentrates in new markets. And I think there's a really interesting, a lot of reasons for that. The idea that we have access to and can smoke in a very small amount of time, something that would be the equivalent of smoking 80 of my mom's joints. This is like, I love this, like in one go, like 80 of my mom's joints. That's a little excessive, right? And the cannabinoid system definitely hasn't, I mean, it hasn't evolved for us living in modern life. There's no way in hell that it's evolved for us to be able to take a dab consistently over time without it doing something that we don't know. We just, I mean, right now, in terms of cannabis and super huge amounts of cannabinoids, especially ones that are like isolated or concentrated, we just don't know what that does to the human body over time. I think concentrates became really popular here in Colorado in 2013. So what is that, 7-8 years ago, something like that. I think that was the first time that I started seeing a lot of people have those around. So that's not a whole lot of time for us to see what happens with extended use. And I do know a lot of people who have had bad experiences with dabs. And I do think that it's kind of unfortunate how often they are promoted in dispensaries. So my mom, who has fibro, went into a medical dispensary in Illinois, and they were like, that was one of the second things they offered her. Same thing happened to me when I moved back to Colorado. And I told the guy 3 times that I don't do that. And he still was like, oh, really? You should. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I kind of share his approach to being very cautious about concentrates, and really avoid their use at all, and don't recommend it. But that's a really long-winded answer. I guess apparently I just wanted to get on my soapbox about concentrates. Thanks, Anna.
No. Thank you too.
Do you have any other questions? Anything else that it brought up?
There's one more thing. Well, this was new to me. He mentioned that the heart releases oxytocin. I didn't know that. That was pretty interesting.
The heart releases oxytocin. My goodness, Anna, I feel like I read a different book, but I didn't get all the way through, so maybe I missed it. I need to Google that. Is that true? Did anybody else read that? Let me get that.
The page numbers, if anybody wants
You
to.
know the page, yeah. She's like, I'm not joking. I'm a nerd like the rest of you. I just highlighted and shit. Yeah, give me that page number. I really want to know. Now I need to go down that rabbit hole though.
That was 295.
295. Oh, look that up.
Yeah.
Oh my
And then
God.
the shatter overdose is on 75 if you want to.
75. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely check into that.
Okay.
Thanks. I love it. I mean, I hope so now. I'm like, with the heart releases oxytocin, that's just like, it's gonna be my favorite new factoid if that's true. I love that. Oh, I love it. Oh, cool. Cool, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate you for being
No
here.
problem.
All right, Megan, I know you had some things that it brought up. Anybody else who had questions that were brought up or questions that are being brought up by this discussion, go ahead and feel free to raise your hand. We've got time. My child's in the bathtub watching Spirit. I can hear.
I'll just, the one thing was, he did talk about that, and he talked about how cannabis connects you to your heart chakra. And if you don't feel it, you can't heal it, you know, kind of like pain, as far as pain, he said that. I thought that was cool. But the other thing was Delta 8. Like, I'm so wanting to know more about that. I feel like we're going to lose it before we even really know what it's about. And he mentioned it briefly, but that was, you know, now things are different. And it feels like it feels like it's THC. So I'm just so curious of how it's not, and what is in the Delta 8, and how they breed it to be higher in that. It's from hemp, right? It's from a hemp plant. So that's how they can sell it.
Yeah,
But it gives you vibes all over it. I thought it helped with pain. It made me go meditate. Like, it was very nice. Just just tried it for the first time a couple days ago. So I'd like to know, or, you know, he mentioned that, but we didn't know much. So
we still don't know. Yeah, we still don't know a ton about Delta 8. There's a lot more than I know for sure. Maureen's saying that Delta 8 was all over. It is definitely the new cannabinoid. I mean, Delta 8, THCV, like CBG is like, oh, who cares anymore? We've got all these other new cannabinoids that we're breathing into and concentrating on. John mentioned that we have very little history with it. A lot of these molecules we have very little history with, and it's difficult from my perspective. It's difficult for us to know the I don't know how I should say this. What would be closest to a natural balance in the plant, right? Because everything has been so distorted and bred for so long. So some of these molecules, maybe we're not used to having a lot of them in our system. And especially when those molecules get isolated, then that's a pharmaceutical, right? At this point, then we're playing with pharmaceuticals that have no clinical trials. So anytime that you isolate anything, I mean, the CBD in your bubble water, you are part of a pharmaceutical trial that has no controls currently, right? So we need to be aware that when we start consuming things that like these isolated cannabinoids, that it's really, really important for us to be cautious. And I think definitely just err on the side of like, maybe a little bit just to try it. That's just my personal opinion, the way that I approach it. But it's kind of crazy to me to see the prevalence and all these things and all these products showing up, and like people like eating it like it's literally candy because it's in candy now, you know? And so I think it's really important for us to stay as close to the whole plant as possible. I really think that of all the ways to use cannabis, consuming it internally seems to have had the best effect with most of my clients. And so it's definitely something that I think is a valuable way to use it. And vaporizing and smoking are much faster, but they have their own stuff, right? So that's my get-go. That doesn't answer your question at all. Now I realize that I just want to get up on another soapbox about whole plants. My goodness. Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate you. All right. Let's see. Anybody else? Who else had questions? Who's having questions come up from this conversation? Nobody. All right, you guys. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. This is my favorite one from everyone. Does anyone have a favorite quote from the book? Anybody have a favorite quote? You can go ahead and pop it in the chat or raise your hand. Was anything that when you read it, you were just like, oh, I know that I have a couple here. My dog literally like ate my homework. He like pulled out all the sheets. I really love the exceptional self-care plus cannabis equals optimal health. It's such a simple way to kind of state that holistic viewpoint. Yeah, and I just really love that frame of health, that idea of wholeness. Anybody else, you guys looking at your books now? You going through your highlights? I love what a big group of nerds we all are. So good. Oh, Sandra, this is the first time that you heard of endocannabinoid deficiency. Yeah. Oh, endocannabinoid deficiency is really fascinating. And now they're talking about the inverse of that, the endocannabinoid hyperactivity. So they're both really interesting ways and new model of looking at our endocannabinoid system and what happens when it's not in balance. And that's what, we talked about this, that I don't remember who mentioned it sometime on this call, but that idea that it's like all these different things that it's beneficial for. And once you start to understand that the endocannabinoid system, a lot of those things just make so much sense. Awesome. Issues with the tissues. I love that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So who is this book for? Who would you give this book to? Is it for beginners? Is it for people who are in their chronic pain journey in the very beginning? Is it for people who are further along? Do you think that if you gave this book to someone that they would use it, that they would incorporate it? Or is it maybe a little too much for a beginner or someone who's in an acute pain journey to navigate on their own? Does anybody have any insights on who this book is for and how you would use it or how you would recommend what's in it to another human? Anybody? I'm gonna start calling on you guys. Jamie, you are nodding your head. Yeah, you were. I saw it going. I'm gonna unmute you. Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I think that the person that this helps the most is not the same person that sits here and reads a book and marks it up. So the issues and the tissues I love a lot because I feel like that can help the person that reads the book help the person with the issues and be the translator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that insight. I can't imagine, and if I were like in the midst of it, I can't imagine this being helpful, to be honest.
Yeah.
I got to that point, especially because I was listening to it, and when he started listing off food stuff, the health coach in me is like, who is going to do that for any consistent amount of time? And I was like, 21 days without any support. Oh my goodness. Like, you're asking a lot of people, Dr. Rob. I mean, like, how many of you could stick to that? That's why I asked this question earlier. How many could stick to that for 21 days by yourself without maybe like an accountability group or a partner? If you were in an acute condition where you're having flare-ups and stuff all the time, probably pretty difficult, right? And even if you did, what's interesting about stuff like that and interventions like that we've learned is that people will do it until the problem goes away, that whatever the flare-up is, and then as soon as it gets better, what do? I'm good. I don't fuck it. I'm gonna eat the whatever the highest sugar, who got the bagel, because he told me I couldn't eat the bagel, and all I've been thinking about are bagels for the past 3 weeks, right? And so it's kind of interesting to see, like, I know it's good-hearted and I know it comes from a good place, but as I was reading this book, I was like, it would be very difficult for me to recommend to someone who is going through that. And so I agree completely. This book to me seems like it was obviously written for people who are, who were Dr. Rob's patients, but I think it's most helpful to people who are in that support role, especially people with chronic pain, because it can be really, really difficult to make even small changes. And for those of you who are in a chronic pain journey or who have dealt with chronic pain throughout your life, you know how challenging it is to make even small changes when you're in that place, right? Can anybody relate? So like giving somebody this, and like I loved it, Megan's just like totally tapped up, but like giving someone that and just being like, okay, go to town. It just doesn't stand on its own, right? These books don't seem to have legs with the people who need them most. So it's really incredible that all of you are here and that you're learning not only to help yourselves, but to help others as well. Because, I think for most of us, as soon as you have any kind of transformation, you want to help other people with it, especially if it's the same stuff that you're going through. especially if you're all here and you're nerds and you like helping people. So thank you all for being here and for reading this book. Does anybody else have anything that you would like to add, that you'd like to share about this book, about what you learned, any ahas? Oh, Trish, I see you have your hand up. I'll ask you to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as the diet, my husband went to a physician with the 360 weight loss program. And he was in this weight loss program for probably a year with my assistant cooking the food. It was very much like what was in this book, but it required a lot of care with my husband to learn how to eat again properly. I mean, thank goodness I cook organically and can do this for him. But for someone to just read that book and try to do that stuff for a period of time, believe me, just stopping processed foods is a big deal. And when you're starting to use a lot of vegetables and, you know, it's amazing what the body can do. He lost 65 pounds within a year, which was pretty incredible. And I have to say, a lot of it was my cooking. But, you know, for anyone just a beginner, no, there's just no way. You have to, you know, it took a physician's assistant to help him to lose the weight, not only just the cooking. So. And I wanted to make one other comment about opioid use. That, like I said, I've been sober for a long time, but with the knee surgery I required, I slipped on Oxycontin for 2 years. So I know what addiction can do. I slipped and I was taking, they were giving me 180 a month. You know, I was going through them like candy. So cannabis in 2010, I had my surgery in 2008. Cannabis helped me get off of the opiates completely. It changed everything for me, physically, mentally, spiritually, because that other stuff was killing me. I'm lucky I didn't. I'm lucky I survived because of my history. So it got me off of them completely. So I'm just letting the newcomer know that there is help for you. There is assistance through cannabis. You just have to take charge yourself to do it. So that's the end of my soapbox.
No, thank you. Can I share the soapbox with you? Because absolutely, I mean, for those of you who followed my thing, it was the same thing. You know, I was on opiates for many years. And luckily there was a young man down the hall who was convinced that cannabis was medicine. And this was Fargo, North Dakota in 2006, something like that. So that was a revolutionary idea at the time, right? That was something that I'd never heard before. Like I had heard people talk about like, oh, it's not as bad. It shouldn't be illegal and we shouldn't go to jail for it. But no one had told me that it was medicine. And he would like leave me joints at my door and I started smoking them. And then I started using cannabis more regularly. And with this idea that it was medicine, it completely changed my relationship to it because I wasn't like, oh, this is something that I do every once in a while. It gives me the munchies. Oh, it's this illegal drug. And was able to get off my opiates in a very short amount of time. And it was surprising to me. So, and then he went to jail, was incarcerated for it. And it was just an injustice. So I appreciate that so much. And I want those of you who's still on this journey, who's still, you know, I know Kelly, yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's on it, just know that it is available. And so keep going, and get the support that you need to really make sure that, again, you don't want to like exit anything really abruptly. And if you are on medications, especially other than opiates, you really want to be working with your doctor and someone preferably who knows about cannabis. And so these books are nice. They're great resources, but it's always good to be working with somebody who also knows how to navigate those journeys as well. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Trisha. This is awesome. I love it. You're an hour from Fargo, Kristen. Oh yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that's all the questions. I guess this is the last question. Did you like it? Would you read another book about cannabis and chronic pain? Would you read another book by Dr. Roth? Yeah, okay, awesome, great. Well, unfortunately, this is our last cannabis book club for the season. It's getting nice. Nobody wants to be inside right now. Who wants to be sitting and reading anymore? So we're going to take the summer off. We're actually not sure if we'll bring Cannabis Book Club back. We're talking about doing a couple of different things with it, maybe turning it into Cannabis Study Group. We're kind of like shuffling things. Oh my God, Sandra. Well, that face was some good feedback. Yeah, so is anybody interested? And Betsy says, I love this book club. Yeah, you're interested in doing a study group, another book club. We're just looking for ways to support the community. And so any ideas that you guys have, please send them to support@cannabiscoachinginstitute.com. Let us know what you want to see and how we can support you in continuing this journey. Study group, nerd stuff. Yeah. I kind of, as we were talking about it, because I know the book a month thing can be a lot for us. And so we were talking about potentially having you guys pick topics and bring in some cannabis coaches to talk about those and jam on it. Becky might be here teaching the next study group. We don't know. She's in the class. This is awesome. Your pot doctor was thrilled you had the support. That's awesome, Betsy. Awesome. Oh, it says, wait, John wanted to talk about topicals. John wanted to talk about topicals. What are we talking about? I love topicals. Okay, go ahead.
So, thank you. So what I wanted to know was, I know transdermals can send the chemistry through the skin protective barrier into your system. That's how nicotine patches work. Mm-hmm. I've tried lots of different topicals that I've made, mm-hmm. and I don't see the kind of benefit that I see when I took your original, what'd you call them, caveman gummies, and I've sort of adapted them along the way to be my little gummies, mm-hmm. of CBD and THC gummies. But I've made lots of different topicals, and I don't see the benefit that other people see. And maybe it's because of where it is, the joint damage I'm trying to deal with. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I did want to ask you also, how long do you, I use an ardent decarboxylator, and I want to know how long you cook. Do you do that twice with CBD or just once when you decarboxylate it?
Okay, so let's go back to topicals and then we'll talk about the, there's a setting for that, but yes. So in terms of topicals, it's not going to have the same impact as an edible or as smoking. It never will. Like you said, unless it's a transdermal product, which can penetrate that barrier, it's not going to get into your bloodstream in the same way. Now, a lot of people have incredible results with topicals, especially with chronic pain. It's definitely one of the things that I use and still use anytime that I have aches and pains. But it's not going to have the same effect, and it can take more cannabinoids. So one of the things that actually Andrea, our cannabis science educator, pointed out that for some reason I'd never thought of it this way, but she's like, really work it in. There's a benefit to you giving yourself a full-on massage when you're using topicals. So again, if we're talking about it from this holistic perspective, I love this in both. Yes, it might help you work that in a little bit better, but how nice is it to give that area that is tense and feeling pain a little bit of love, right? And a little bit of care and a little bit of attention. And so if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But a lot of people really, really seem to love them. I love them. I think they're incredible. And it's more about that localized kind of relief for most folks.
Do you have a sense of a concentration you'd like to shoot for in a topical?
Yeah. Well, I have one right now that a friend of mine made that is really concentrated. I mean, it's a small jar, and I think it's like 750 milligrams, and that shit is fire. I love that so much. but I also, if you go to, I have a salve, a recipe that has essential oils as well. And that one seems to need a lot fewer. And maybe it's because, I use black pepper and a bunch of other stuff in it that, so I think that maybe it's all working together, and that's why it doesn't seem to have to be so strong. But it just, it depends on what plant material you're working with. I would say make it as strong as possible while, unless it's like economically not feasible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We
as much as you can get in there, because with that's one of those things that we don't really have to worry about it affecting the endocannabinoid system in such a direct way. And it, like I said, it can be really beneficial. Some people really like it a lot. So
thank you.
Awesome. Oh, and in terms of the CBD, if you've got the Nova, if you got the little one, for those of you who have questions about that, that's the one that you have. It's 2 cycles. The first cycle will get you over 90% there. The second one just bumps it the rest of the way up. With the new FX they have, there's a specific setting for that on the device. So
Thank you.
easy. Yeah. But it
Awesome.
takes it most of the way. Yeah. When Chanel told me that, I was like, wait, why did I hit it again then? 90% is good enough for me. I was like wasting electricity at this point. But there are some nerds out there that want 100 or whatever, 99% or whatever.
All right.
Awesome. I love it. Yep. Sandra's saying, yep, you use high THC oil with essential oils, peppermint for lower back pain, deep massage. Yes, peppermint is amazing. Black pepper, ginger. I love it. That recipe for salad that's on Wake and Bake is like really nice for inflammation. Awesome. 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 Maureen's telling everybody, grow your own. There we go. There's always a grow your own activist in here somewhere. Yes. I love it. Okay. No, the magical butter machine does not decarboxylate. That is a separate endeavor. Okay. I just saw that one as pulled through. Is there anything else? Kelly says they've never worked for, yeah, not everything works for everybody. So use what works. Awesome. Cool, cool. Well, if that is it, then I would love to talk to you about what we're doing at the Cannabis Coaching Institute. Now, if you've already joined us, you can say goodbye to everybody. This is for people who are starting their business, are starting their career, have just started out, or are completely new to cannabis and know that you want to help others with it. We're doing something completely new that we haven't done in years, and it's a new iteration of that. We're actually only releasing it to you guys for right now. So we want to make sure that because you guys are the group of nerds that I like hanging out with every month, that you had first access to these. So we're going to be doing these discovery calls with a cannabis career coach. They're completely free. It's an hour-long session. For those of you who did the work in the class we did a couple months ago, where we did the 3 steps, it's kind of the next step in that. And it's sitting down with someone saying, this is really what I want to create. This is who I want to help. And our coaches are trained so that they can help you facilitate that vision and also see what's been holding you back. Why haven't you been making those steps forward? Maybe what's been slowing you down in the process, and then give you some resources and some tools to help you move forward. All right. Very exciting. So we're doing these because personally, I am really tired of women leaving this industry, and I'm really tired of seeing female businesses not succeed. If you're not, it's not just for women, but we really wanted to create a resource for people to be able to, who knew they wanted to step into this, to be able to get the support they need. Women need much more support in this industry. We're much less likely to get funded by venture capitalists. We're much less likely, even if we did get funded by venture capitalists, to get mentorship. And so we really wanted to create that. And now that we have coaches that are really well trained in this process, we wanted to offer it to our community. Our programs moving forward will be by invitation only. And so if we feel like one of our programs is a good fit for you as you talk about your vision and tell us what you're dealing with, then we'll invite you into the program. If not, we'll give you whatever resources that we know to be available at the time that will help you follow through. All right. So I'm going to pop that in the chat. Make sure if you're interested in doing that, that you do it today. We're going to start releasing it out into the wild tomorrow and in the next few weeks, and then into perpetuity. We really want, again, and I don't mean to pick on you, John's like lit up. I'm like not saying that John can't do them, but honestly, like I'm so tired of seeing the headlines of like, oh yeah, we used to have the most CEOs, but not anymore. And women are leaving the cannabis industry for all these reasons. And to see how many people need help, and to see how much this industry needs leadership and guidance, and to see how talented and incredible and passionate so many women are, and then they stumble over the same things over and over again. When you watch that for a couple of years, it just gets old, right? So we wanted to make sure that we had a way to support people who are starting this off. All righty. That is all I have today. I should probably get that child out of the bathtub before she turns into an actual legitimate prune. Make sure that if you want to get on one of those calls that you book it today. Again, oh, nice. Legalization in Panama. Oh yeah, wait, I forgot to celebrate the beginning of this call. I meant to celebrate New York. Anybody from New York? Anybody from New Mexico? Do you want to celebrate? Yes, I just wanted to point out again that laws are changing all around the world. It's happening more rapidly. It literally, I woke up New York and then I woke up the next day in New Mexico and I was blown away. All the people in all of these states and around the world are going to need support with this stuff. We just saw people saying, I need support with this kind of thing, right? So you see the need and you know that you want to start a career doing this, it's possible, and we want to show you how. So make sure you sign up for a call. Otherwise, again, send your info, not your info, but your ideas for Cannabis Study Group, things that you want to learn about, shoot that over to support@cannabiscoachinginstitute.com. Any questions you have, anything you're wondering about, anything you want to geek out with the community, we'd love to join you for that in the fall. We're taking the summer off from our nerd sessions and maybe like, I don't know, going to get tans. I'm actually going to become a river guide, so that's what I'll be doing this summer. And I'll be back in the fall. I love you all so much. Please turn off your mic, or turn on your microphones, unmute yourselves if you can. Let's say goodbye to everybody. Thank you all for being here. Goodbye.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you all. Super excited.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
Oh,
you.
Susan! I didn't see you, Susan. Mwah, 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 mwah. Love you so much. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.